when you're up next for a cut. It's the confidence of a great haircut delivered by a team you trust. Download our app today. Great Clips. It's gonna be great.
No matter what you're eating during today's Warriors game, sharing a jar of Mazzetta makes it better. Family and friends and share some unforgettable flavors with Mazzetta.
The lights, the crowd, the moment. When the Warriors take the floor, greatness follows. At Cache Creek Casino Resort, every moment shines. Feel the rush as the reels spin. Breathe in our serene spa. Savor each bite in our award-winning steakhouse. And recharge in the comfort of our luxurious hotel. Cache Creek Casino Resort, proud partner of your Golden State Warriors. Please play responsibly.
Kia is the official automotive partner of the NBA. And we think about basketball a lot. The plays, the swagger, the glory, the game. And how we can elevate our own game with capability that takes us to another level. And ground clearance that propels us even higher. The 3-row 2025 Kia Telluride X-Line all-wheel drive. Kia, official vehicle partner of the Golden State Warriors. Call 800-333-4KIA for details. Always drive safely. Limited inventory available.
You live for this. The wins, the losses, the slam dunks, and the buzzer beaters. The dream that this is your team's year. Hope, it's what keeps you coming back. So you represent with anticipation and with pride. Because when everything's on the line, your support means everything. That's why the NBA Store is here to support you. Check out the largest selection of official NBA gear at NBAstore.com. A Fanatics experience.
What's up, Dub Nation? Do you want to get cash back on Warriors gear? All you have to do is sign up at Rakuten.com/Warriors, where you can earn 10% cash back in store and online at Warriors Shop. Once you're a member, shop your favorite stores like Fanatics and Ticketmaster and watch the cash back add up in your account. Rakuten is the most rewarding way for you to shop and maximize your savings. Join Rakuten for free today at Rakuten.com/Warriors or download the Rakuten app. That's RAKUTEN.
Hey, Dub Nation. If you're traveling to cheer on the Warriors this season, then the most important thing to pack is the United Airlines app. You can track your bags, change your flight or your seat, get a personalized map of the airport terminal, even talk to a live customer service agent. It's like having a travel agent in the palm of your hand for free. And yeah, that technically makes it a free agent. Download the United app and book your next trip today. United, proud to be the official airline of the Golden State Warriors.
The Curry pump fake, flyby, 3-ball, got it with the buzzer sounding!
You've been listening to Golden State Warriors basketball on the Warriors Radio Network. Presented by United Airlines. For tickets, visit Warriors.com or call 888-GSW-WHO.
You wish you were here.
This Odyssey Sports broadcast has been brought to you by Geico. Switch and save. Get more with Geico.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ-FM and HD1 San Francisco on Odyssey Sports Station and the home of the Golden State Warriors and Valkyries. Always live on the free Odyssey app and now coming to you live from the Laughing Monk Studios.
Left hash, guarded by Jarris Walker. Into Steph. Hesitation, corner three, high arcer, no good, front rim, and that'll do it. Rebound, Isaiah Jackson. And the Indiana Pacers get off the schneid. Their first win of the year comes against the Warriors by a final of 114-109. Warriors go 0-2 on this mini road trip and drop to 4-3.
And that was Kevin Dana on the call for us here on 95.7 The Game, and a rough one for the Warriors. They fall to the Pacers 114-109, as you just heard Kevin Dana say. Welcome in. It's Warriors Wrap-Up here on 95.7 The Game on a Saturday evening. Mark Randy with you for at least the next hour or so. We'll see how many of you guys want to talk. And I'm just going to say off the bat, excuse me, I want to hear from you because this was a rough one. Third Warriors loss of the year in their first 7 games. They're 4-3. But this one feels like the worst of the bunch. I know last time out, Thursday in Milwaukee, it was Milwaukee without Giannis. But this one you had, and you let it slip through your fingers. The loss in Portland was back end of a back-to-back. No Al Horford. You lose by 20. A rough loss, and you're not going to just wipe it away and say it's okay. But this one was the worst of the bunch, and there's a lot to talk about. So line them up, 888-957-9570. If you want to weigh in. I've also got our text line up. That's the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. Same number there, 888-957-9570. And I've got the YouTube chat up, youtube.com/957thegame. The YouTubers already chiming in. 114-109 was the final. The Pacers win. Warriors were up by 11 at 104-93 with 6:05 left in this game. Steph Curry hit a 3 to push the lead to 11. From that moment on, 21-5 run for the Pacers, and they used that to win the basketball game, 114-109. The Warriors turned the ball over too often. They could not get good looks. Their threes were not falling. Steph Curry, oddly, despite leading the team in scoring with 24 points, he was arguably their worst player on the floor tonight. Steph Curry is one of the greatest basketball players of all time. It happens. Steph was absolutely terrible today. The Warriors' best stretch of basketball came with him off the floor tonight, oddly enough. The Warriors were down 6. The Warriors were down 6 in the third quarter, and this was a really, really rough stretch. The game turned in the third quarter, but it was bad to begin the third quarter. The Pacers pushed their lead to 6 at 73-67 with about 5:45 to go, so about 6 minutes left in the third quarter. Pacers up by 6. And what led to that 6-point lead was 3 Warrior turnovers, or almost turnovers in a row. Guy Santos had a moving screen. Jonathan Kuminga drove into traffic. The official call was that he got his shot blocked. Could have very easily been described as a steal instead. So technically not a turnover, but a missed shot. And then a Steph Curry bad pass, top of the key that got knocked away, led to a fast break bucket for the Pacers. They're up by 6. Steve Kerr calls a timeout. And then what happens? Steph Curry checks out. Jonathan Kuminga checks out. Podziemski and Moody come in, along with Buddy Hield, Guy Santos, and Al Horford. Shortly thereafter, Butler would check in for Hield, and the Warriors closed that third quarter on a 21-9 run. A 21-9 run to close the third quarter without Steph on the floor. Warriors go from down 6 to up 6 entering the fourth quarter, and the run continued into the fourth quarter, by the way. It ultimately became a 38-21 Warrior run over nearly 12 minutes of basketball, essentially the final 6 of the third and the first 6 of the fourth, a 38-21 run, and the vast majority of that run happened while Steph was on the floor. Steph sat for about 11 minutes, and the Warriors outscored the Pacers by 14, 35-21. During that stretch, again, it was a 6-point deficit, turned to an 8-point lead while Steph rested. Crazy that that's the way that this game went. Steph had 24 points, 8 for 23 from the field. The definition of a volume scorer, 4 for 16 from downtown. Did not record a rebound, had just 2 assists, and committed 5 turnovers. He was a minus 21 in his 29 minutes played. If you're unfamiliar with plus-minus, that means when he was on the floor, the 29 minutes that he was on the floor, the Warriors were outscored by 21 points, which means in a game where the Warriors lost by 5, in the 19 minutes that Steph rested, the Warriors outscored the Pacers by 16 points, and a big chunk of it was that chunk of time I was just talking about. Over 11 minutes spanning the third and fourth quarters, the Warriors outscored the Pacers by 14 points while Steph rested. Wow. Warriors led by 11 with 6 minutes left, then a 21-5 Pacer run to win this game. Aaron Nesmith, who I'm a big fan of, had a career-high 31 points in this game. Quentin Jackson, undrafted a few years ago, hasn't really established himself in the NBA, also set a career high in scoring in this game. Pascal Siakam was very good. The Warriors could not get enough offense down the stretch. They scored just 21 points in the fourth quarter in this one. A lot of bad in this basketball game, and we'll get to all of it. 888-957-9570 is the number to call and to text. I'm seeing a lot of this come in early, and if you feel this way, I want you to call because I want to know exactly what you wanted the Warriors to do differently. Again, 888-957-9570. I see it on the text line from the 408, and I'm seeing it all over the YouTube chat as well, youtube.com/957thegame. A lot of people upset at Steve Kerr saying his rotations were terrible today. I'm just going to ask, I'm curious, what did you want Steve Kerr to do differently? Because, one, he's not going to not play Steph in crunch time. Steph Curry is one of the 10 or 5 best players to ever play this game, no matter how bad he's playing. He's playing to close a close game. He actually took Steph out of the game earlier than he normally would in the third quarter because he was playing so poorly. That's when the Warriors turned thing around. Steph sat for nearly an entire quarter. That never happens. If you're talking about Will Richard not playing at all, maybe I can understand that a little bit. GP2 didn't play all that much. He played, GP2 played 9 minutes, 8 minutes and 48 seconds. Will Richard did not play. Trace Jackson Davis did not play. Pat Spencer did not play. So if you're calling for Will Richard, I feel you there. Every time Will Richard's on the floor, good things happen, much like Guy Santos. Guy Santos checked in that third quarter and changed the game. I mentioned that stretch while Steph was on the bench. He was off the floor. Guy Santos was on the floor. Guy Santos just offensive rebound after offensive rebound after offensive rebound. Hustle play after hustle play. A nice timely cut from the corner off a Buddy Hield drive. A right corner three-pointer. He was huge in this game. But when your stars and your veterans struggle, Steph Curry was a minus 21 in 29 minutes. It's going to be hard for you to win a basketball game. He was 8 for 23 from the field and 4 for 16 from downtown. Now, it's really encouraging that the Warriors were able to be very good with Steph off the floor. Now, it's hard to take away anything positive from this game because you blew an 11-point lead with 6 minutes left. But the Warriors were by far the better team when Steph sat, which is rare for this Warrior team. They ultimately lose this one 114-109. Again, if you want to weigh in, give me a call, shoot me a text, 888-957-9570. I'm seeing a lot of this on the YouTube chat, again, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Let's see here. Looks like less GP2, less Buddy Hield is what I'm seeing. More Moses Moody, potentially more Will Richard as well. I hear you. I feel you. That might have made a difference in this game. Ultimately, the reason the Warriors lost this game, and this is fine. Steph Curry is still the greatest thing to ever happen to the Warriors, and it's never going to change that for as long as the NBA is a thing. Steph Curry is the reason the Warriors lost tonight. And that's fine. It's going to happen. The Warriors committed 16 turnovers as a team. Steph committed 5 of them. And a number of them are just inexplicable ones. And he tends to have those at times. Sometimes they come in bunches. I remember last year this was happening. I talked about it on Thursday evening because the Warriors lost to the Bucks on Thursday. They had that stretch at home last year where they lost to the Jokic-less Nuggets at home. The next day, they had a game against the Bucks, and Steph played in the game versus Denver, struggled with turnovers, and Steve said post-game, he pulled him aside and said, "Hey, Steph, I can feel you. You're mentally drained. You're not playing next game. We're sitting you on the back end of this back-to-back versus the Bucks, and we're just going to see what happens here." Not saying that I think Steph's mentally or physically drained. It is early in the season, but this has been a really, really tough beginning of the season schedule for the Warriors. But maybe that is what's happening with Steph. Regardless of the reason to me isn't that important. It's Steph. We know that he's going to bounce back in the next game that he plays. Warriors have 2 days off before they return home to take on the Phoenix Suns. But Steph's the reason the Warriors lost today. And if I'm Steve Kerr, if I'm the head coach of this Warriors team, choosing, am I going to play Steph in a close game or not? Of course I'm choosing yes, even if he's 0 for 19 from the field. Like, Steph is Steph. Like, I get some of the smaller end of bench decisions. Does Will Richard deserve more? Should GP2 be playing at all? I talked about that on Thursday. GP2's role might be, dwindling with the way that Will Richard is playing. Also, DeAnthony Melton expected back at some point this month. That's certainly possible. With the way that Guy Santos played today, I guarantee you Steve Kerr is going to feel like he needs to play Guy Santos a little bit more. Where do those minutes come from? Certainly possible that they're going to come from Gary Payton II. When it comes to Buddy Hield minutes or Moses Moody minutes, there is kind of a logjam there. Buddy Hield is always going to have an opportunity to play because he can win you a game by himself with his shooting. Hasn't been great so far this season. He played 15 and a half minutes, only got 4 shots up, made a 3. I didn't think he was terrible today. I don't think he played his way off the floor. The other thing that I think is very apparent for the Warriors, is, who the hell is this Quentin Jackson guy, right? He's a 6'4" guard out of Texas A&M, undrafted a few seasons ago. This was only his 8th start of his career. First start this season, started 7 games for the Pacers last year. Played only 12 games his first two years in the NBA, trying to make a name for himself. Today was a great start, set a career high in scoring with those 25 points. Also had 6 rebounds and 10 assists and no turnovers, by the way. He was amazing in this game. But you compare what Quentin Jackson did to this Warrior defense versus what Ryan Rollins did to this Warrior defense, and you might be able to draw a through line between those two. Rollins had 32 points, 8 assists, was 13 for 21 from the field, 5 for 7 from deep. Quentin Jackson, 25 points, 6 rebounds, 10 assists, 10 of 16 from the field, 3 of 4 from downtown. Warriors right now are really struggling against these quicker guards. Guards that can penetrate, the Warriors are really, really struggling. If it's a wing, the Warriors have some defenders they can throw on wings. They can throw on 6'6", 6'7", even 6'8" guys, right? That's in Kuminga's wheelhouse. That's also, I think, where Moody can thrive defensively. The Warriors want to limit the amount of times they put Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green on the perimeter versus guys like that. But still, those are capable guys, maybe not like in a game or play in and play out, possession in and possession out over the course of an entire game. But like if you need them to check, like somebody like Pascal Siakam, those guys can do that on the perimeter from time to time. Although it was mostly Kuminga and Moody on Pascal Siakam tonight. Although, again, there were some moments where it was Draymond and it was Jimmy Butler. But the Warriors struggle against those smaller, quicker guards that can penetrate. And it's happened in back-to-back games now. And no disrespect to Ryan Rollins and Quentin Jackson. If you've listened to me, you know I'm a big fan of Ryan Rollins specifically. But those are relative unknowns and guys that haven't yet created a full, regular, consistent role for themselves in the NBA. And they came through and absolutely dominated the Warriors in back-to-back games because of their quickness. And if you put a smaller guard out there against this Warrior team, it means it's going to have to be, because it's more difficult for the longer Kuminga and the less fleet of foot Moody to stay in front of guys like that. So if Kuminga is getting beaten off the dribble, or if Moody's getting beat off the dribble by those smaller, quicker guys, and it's not a knock on Kuminga or Moody, that's a really tough cover. You're bigger, and you have to stick with this shorter, smaller, quicker guy. That's not an easy thing to do. And if those two can't do it, then without DeAnthony Melton right now, you have to ask Podziemski, Curry, Buddy Hield to do it. And if those are the guys that are your point of attack defenders versus an opponent's, I'm not going to say best player. Quentin Jackson's no doubt not the Pacers' best player, but over a guy who has it going in an individual game, you're going to get beat consistently off the dribble at the point of attack. And that led to a number of these Indiana buckets. And it's why these 2 point guards, their last 2 games they've played, have racked up the assists. 18 assists from Rollins and Quentin Jackson the last 2 games versus this Warrior defense. Because if you have a smaller, quicker guard that Kuminga and Moody can't stick with, then you're asking Pods, Curry, and Hield to defend them. And those guys can't really do it. And maybe, to the YouTube chat's point, Maybe that's where Will Richard comes in, because Will Richard could probably do that better than any of those other guys. Will Richard, interestingly enough, was a DNP coach's decision tonight, which didn't make a lot of sense to me. But we'll have to see if Steve Kerr answered that post game tonight. But yeah, the Warriors blew this game. They absolutely blew it, and this was one that they should have had. And this one is incredibly frustrating because you got a lot from some of your others tonight. I thought Brandon Podziemski had himself a pretty good game offensively. I mean, a game in which the Warriors lost by 5 points, 114 to 109. Podziemski was a +7. A +7. So the Warriors outscored the Pacers by 7 points while Podziemski was on the floor, which means while he was off the floor in about 13 minutes of basketball, he rested. He was on the bench for 13 minutes, played for 35. In those 13 while he was off the floor, the Warriors are outscored by 12 points. Podziemski, I thought, was good today. 16 points, 6 for 10 from the field, made a 3, got to the line 4 times, had 4 rebounds, 3 assists, did not turn the ball over. Who else was good? I thought that Moses Moody was good today, and this was also what the YouTube chat was talking about. Maybe it's more Moses Moody minutes. He played 16 minutes today. Could you have seen some of those GP2 minutes go to Moses Moody? Certainly. That's a possibility. I think looking at this now, Steve Kerr would probably agree with you. He only made 1 shot, Moses did, but what he was doing during that run at the end of the third quarter, early fourth, is the big reason why he was a team-high +15 in this game. Now, single game plus-minus is not the most reliable indicator of solid play, but there's no doubt, while Moody was on the floor, the Warriors were good today. Same could be said for Guy Santos. He was on the floor for 11 minutes. Warriors were 6 points better than the Pacers in those 11 minutes. And he had just had an impact on almost every single play at the end of that third quarter with offensive rebounds and a whole lot more. So you got good performances from some of your others, yet you weren't able to win the game because, I mean, we can just be honest with ourselves. The Warriors stars, the guys that you rely on to be the leaders night in and night out, really struggled. And when I say those guys, I'm specifically talking about Stephen Curry. It wasn't anything amazing from Jimmy Butler. He scored 20, but he was inefficient, 6 for 14 from the field. But he got to the line 9 times, a lot of free points there. Draymond Green, you're never going to look at him to be the guy to score you 20 points, but he was also a -13 in his minutes. And this was one of Jonathan Kuminga's worst performances of the year, which isn't saying that much considering he's been awesome through 5 games, but Kuminga never really found a rhythm offensively. He scored 17 points in this game, but it felt like a lot of it was forced at times, specifically in the second half. The first half, he was fine. But I think he really struggled defensively in this game. There were a number of moments. You know what? I'll get to that when we come back because I want to talk about the Warriors' defense. I think this is probably issue number 1 for the Warriors right now. Steph is going to go 8 for 23 from the field every night. He's going to make more than 25% of his threes, and you hope that he's not going to turn the ball over 5 times a game. The offense, I think, is you have plenty of reason to believe it's going to be a lot better than it was tonight. They only scored 109 points. They shot 43% from the field, 27% from deep. I think the offense pretty easily is going to be better than this. Defense, though, is the issue. And there's a few things that I want to circle when it comes to defense, and we can do that on the other side. 888-957-9570 if you want to weigh in. That's the number to call. It is also the Boxer and Gerson Work Injury Attorneys text line. And I will get to some of the chats coming in on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/957 The Game. Everything we do on YouTube, as always, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. The Warriors lose to the Pacers 114 to 109. They let this one go. They led by 11, 104 to 93 with 6 minutes left. The Pacers a 21-5 run to close this out, and they win 114 to 109. Aaron Nesmith, 31 points, a career high. Quentin Jackson, 25 points, a career high. And the worst game of the season for Steph Curry. That's a recipe for a Pacer win in a Warrior loss. Again, the final 114 to 109. First Pacer win of the year. They're now 1-5, but they are better than their record says. I knew they were 0-5, but 3 of those losses were either in overtime or decided by 4 points or fewer. This is not a terrible basketball team, but this absolutely was a game the Warriors should have won, and they let it slip through their fingers. Okay, time for a break. Your calls and texts, plus Steve Kerr coming up on the other side, and we got to talk about this Warrior defense. That's coming up when we return after this, right here on Warriors Wrap-Up. Mark Randy with you on 95.7 The Game.
30 feet from the hoop, feeding Pajemski on the right wing. Looking for Kuminga right baseline. Guarded by Jarris Walker. Jab step. Head fake. Driving baseline and powers it to the rim with a two-hand flush off 2 feet. Timeout, says Rick Carlisle. We're all tied up at 67. Some would say 6-7 to 6-7.
Now back to Warriors Wrap Up on 95.7 The Game.
Oh, Kev. Yeah, kids, 6-7. That was a Jonathan Kuminga dunk. Tied the game at 67. Kuminga had a lot of highlights in this game. Like 5 dunks, I think? Kuminga alone. He had a lot of really nice moments. Offensively, I think he kind of got a little lost in the shuffle at times in the second half. This is a team-wide issue. And first of all, welcome back. It's Warriors Wrap Up. Mark Randy with you here on 95.7 The Game. Dubs fall to the Pacers 114-109. The Warriors led by 11, 104-93 with 6 minutes left. They get outscored 21-5 the rest of the way. 5 points for the Warriors in the final 6 minutes of this basketball game. They scored just 21 in the fourth quarter. They were dominant. They were dominating final 6 of the third, first 6 of the fourth, and then it just completely flipped, and they got outscored 21-5 the final 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. They lose 114-109. Because my guy Cam played that highlight of Kuminga with that dunk that tied the game at 67 in the third quarter, I just want to highlight a couple of moments that I noticed defensively for Kuminga. And again, this is a team-wide issue, and some of it is, at times, not necessarily what I'm highlighting, but some of it is, at times, just simply a personnel issue for the Warriors. Against these smaller, quicker guards, like Quentin Jackson today, I don't blame you if you don't know who he was. Now you know who he is. But before tonight, you're like, they're starting Quentin Jackson? Who the hell is that? I don't blame you. But also Ryan Rollins on Thursday. You got those smaller, quicker guards. Warriors don't have a trump card they can throw at those kind of guys. Like, you can try Moody, you can try Kuminga, you can try Pajemski, you can try Hield, you can try Steph. It's not going to work against those guys that just have you beat on quickness off the dribble. They probably why they need D'Anthony Melton back, although Melton isn't necessarily that elite, quickness guy from side to side. Maybe it's where Will Richard becomes more valuable because you think that he might have the ability to stay in front of some of those smaller, quicker guys. But some of it is a personnel issue. You just simply don't have the guys that can consistently stay in front of those kinds of ball handlers. But also what's happening for the Warriors the last couple of games, and really for a majority of the season, because their defense hasn't been amazing all year. The Clippers game, specifically in the second half when they allowed just 30 points, that is a great display of Warriors defense. Now the Clippers, what do we know about the Clippers? The oldest team in basketball, and their main ball handlers are James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. James is amazing. Harden is still amazing. And while he's not going to beat you with his quickness necessarily anymore, he's still going to get to the rim. But those are easier covers is not the right word because Harden has so much in his bag of tools that someone like Ryan Rollins does not have. But just in terms of your quickness versus my quickness, can I stay in front of you on the perimeter? Kuminga's going to have a much easier job at doing that versus Kawhi or James than he is versus Ryan Rollins or someone like Quentin Jackson. So a lot of this is personnel-based because the Warriors just might not have the guy currently to stay in front of those kind of guys. Now, what is also plaguing the Warriors defensively, and this is something that is controllable and that is not personnel-based, they're just falling asleep. They are falling asleep on defense. It is just, frankly, dumb mistakes, and it's happening often. First possession, first bucket of the game. The first bucket of this game was a Aaron Nesmith right wing three-pointer. It came off of a Warriors miss on the other end of the floor. And as the Warriors are jogging back on defense, Nesmith is Kuminga's responsibility, and Kuminga just kind of loses sight of him as he watches the ball being dribbled up from like the top of the key, loses sight of Nesmith right wing, and the ball goes to Nesmith. Kuminga's nowhere to be found, an easy three for Nesmith, and he makes it. That was one example, just falling asleep on defense. Again, it's not just a Kuminga thing. Like, it's happening everywhere on the floor for the Warriors. And then there was a moment in the fourth quarter, and this one is more difficult because I think honestly it stemmed from a really good play, a really good initial play by Kuminga defensively, but then you just lose focus for a second, and that costs you. So in the fourth quarter, it's a tie game with 57 seconds left. All right, this is, up to this point in the game, the most important possession of the basketball game. Tie game with 57 seconds left. And the Pacers have the ball. Siakam, guarded by Kuminga, they call a screen. They get Curry switched on to him. So now it's Steph Curry guarding Siakam. Siakam has the ball, top of the key. Clock is ticking, under a minute to go, a tie basketball game. Warriors need to stop. If you get a stop, you feel good about your chances to win this basketball game. And Jonathan Kuminga realizes this. He realizes Steph Curry is on a switch on Siakam. This is a major mismatch. It's a red flag. It's alert, alert, alert. We need to help Steph. So what does Kuminga do? He does the right thing. He finds a way to come off of his guy that he got switched on to and essentially double team Siakam for a second, allowing Steph to then race back to the open man. So Kuminga essentially forces the switch back. After being switched off of Siakam, he just, himself, the right decision, forces the switch back. And as he does that, Siakam gives the ball up. And that gives, the Warriors an opportunity to then kind of recover and get back, man up. You got 5-on-5. All right, let's reset this possession. But what happens after Kuminga switches back onto Siakam and Siakam gives the ball up to the right corner? I believe it might have been to Quentin Jackson. I don't know exactly who controlled it, but it went to the right corner. And for some reason, Kuminga just loses sight of Siakam, gets kind of pulled away. He gets sucked into the ball a little bit. He just drifts too far away from Siakam. The ball immediately comes right back to Siakam, top of the key three, because Kuminga drifted too far away, leads to the open three, the go-ahead three with less than a minute to go. Those are some of the examples of just, losing focus for a second. Losing focus for a second. And in a game like this, that's the difference. And that kind of thing, again, it's not just the Kuminga story. I just noticed it specifically in that fourth quarter, and it was Kuminga on that last possession. Again, it was a good decision by Kuminga, first of all, to say, Steph's in trouble, let's switch this back. He did that, but you just can't drift off of Siakam as far as he did, leading to that open three. And then they drop a play for Kuminga in the left corner. He misses a contested three. No, not Kuminga's fault there. That's a tough play and kind of an interesting play design in that situation. It wasn't even a good look. There was a hand in his face. He missed it. Then Quentin Jackson drives on Draymond, and you love that matchup if you're the Warriors. Yeah, Quentin Jackson is quick, but Draymond's the most unique defender in the NBA, and Quentin Jackson drives to him on the right side, then a little step back, fall away from like 12 feet out, and he hits it, and that's the ball game. But there is a lot of moments of the Warriors not necessarily just getting beat because the opponent was better, but falling asleep for a second, losing focus for a second, just being a little sloppy, and it's costing the Warriors defensively. And I think that there's reason to believe they will be better at those sorts of things as the season goes along, but the issue of point-of-attack defense versus those smaller, quicker guards, I think is a big issue for this Warrior team. Ultimately, the Warriors lose 114-109. Now, I'm seeing some of this come in on the YouTube chat, also on the text line, 888-957-9570. Jim, as I see you writing in, just tell me you haven't been listening to the show, because I said it off the very top. The Warriors lost this game because of Steph Curry's turnovers. But basketball is a long game. It's played over the course of 48 minutes. There's a lot of things that go well and go poorly. And my job here on 95.7 The Game on Warriors Wrap-Up is to talk about all the things. Steph Curry was terrible today. He lost the Warriors this basketball game. But despite how bad he played, they had a chance to win this game in the final minute. And when the game is that close down the stretch, 1 second of losing focus is the difference between wins and losses. Now, should it have been that close in the first place? No, of course not. Of course not. But it was. And you can't lose focus in that moment. was Kuminga the reason they lost tonight more than Steph. No, we don't need to play that game, but no, it was Steph. Steph was terrible today, and that's fine. It happens. It happens to everybody, no matter how good or bad you are in the large scheme of things in the NBA. Steph had a really, really rough game, and I'm sure if you ask him, he will blame himself for this. 5 turnovers in this game, and the second that he checked in, not the second, but like a minute or two after he checked in the fourth quarter, that's when the Pacer run began. And by the way, when he checked out in the third quarter, that's when the Warrior run began. Warriors were down 6 after a terrible Steph Curry turnover led to a fast break Pacer bucket. Right after that, Steph checks out. Warriors go on a 21-9 run to close the third quarter, ultimately a 35-21 Warrior run while Steph sat for 11 minutes. Steph in this basketball game was a minus 21 in his 29 minutes. The Warriors were terrible when Steph was on the floor. They were very good with him off. Steph was bad today. It's as simple as that. Now, was everybody else picture perfect? No, of course not. That's not how basketball works. A lot of reasons why the Warriors lost this game. Steph was bad. It's absolutely reason number one. It happens. It happens. All right. 888-957-9570. Let's hear from Steve Kerr. Steve addressed the media postgame in Indiana after the Warriors lose 114-109. They blow an 11-point lead with 6 minutes left in regulation. 21-5 Pacer run to close this game out, and the Dubs are now 4-3. They've lost back-to-back games. They're 1-3 on the road. They're 0-3 outside of the state of California. They're 4-0 in California. The Warriors have not been very good on the road. They've lost their last 3 road games. They won on opening night in LA versus the Lakers, have not won on the road since. Losses in Portland, in Milwaukee, and now in Indiana. Here is Warriors head coach Steve Kerr postgame tonight after his team's loss to the Pacers.
Everything went wrong. We didn't execute on offense. We didn't execute on defense. We fouled. We turned it over. We didn't deserve it. They played great.
I think Steph went like 80-23, 5 turnovers, -1.
Yeah.
What did you see from him?
It just wasn't Steph's night. He just wasn't himself, and tough night.
Steve, what's the biggest message you wanted to get across to them after the game?
There was no message. Yeah, now's not the time to say anything to the team. We got to pack up and fly home and regroup.
I mean, do you feel like you lost some significant momentum that seemed to be building? I mean, it's only 7 games.
Well, we know the West is loaded, and feels like we just gave away 2 games that if we are locked in and focused and playing the way we know we can play, we should have won them. So we got to pick up those games somewhere along the way. But, at the end of the season, I mean, the last 3 years, it's the same thing. It's like one or 2 games. And so we have to find a way to be sharper and to be better. And there's going to be some tough nights. I mean, there's always tough nights during the season. This should not have been one of them. We had the day off yesterday. We didn't shoot around this morning. We had plenty of rest. But the execution down the stretch was awful, and it's a shame because our young guys played their ass off, to get us the 11-point lead. Guy, Moses, BP, those guys were fantastic, and they completely flipped the game, when I put them in, and they did their job, and we just couldn't close.
What did you like from Guy tonight?
Offensive boards, cutting, knocks down a 3. This is why Guy is so important to us. On nights like tonight where we have no energy, everybody looks tired, he comes out and he changes the game, and that's exactly what he did tonight. Moses did that too tonight, did a really good job, came in and with that group, and BP as well. They really flipped the game, and it's a shame we couldn't close it for them.
Where are you seeing the breakdowns defensively tonight?
I didn't like the fouling. I mean, we had several fouls, that were unnecessary fouls, just reaching. I thought for the most part our switching was pretty good, but they got 11 offensive boards. They got some second chance points, 15 of them, and then 28 free throws, too many.
That's Steve Kerr post-game in Indiana tonight. That's a frustrated Steve Kerr. He said, quote, "It feels like we just gave away 2 games." Yeah, they absolutely did. This one more so, the Pacer or the Milwaukee game was a little bit more like anyone's game, a coin flip. Now, you could argue the reason why it was a coin flip was because the Warriors allowed it to be and they played so poorly, and that's totally fair. The Warriors were not playing amazing basketball for the majority of the game tonight, yet they had an 11-point lead with 6 minutes left. And a huge credit of that is what Steve Kerr was talking about, the bench group that turned this game around. Again, the Warriors had a stretch of possessions where it technically wasn't 3 straight turnovers because one of them was a Kuminga dribble into traffic in the paint, tried to put up a shot, and it got blocked. But it wasn't really much of a shot attempt. It was officially called a block, but it very easily could have been called a steal and a turnover. They called it a block, though, so technically not a turnover. But if it was a steal, it would have been 3 straight turnovers. There was a Guy Santos moving screen, that Kuminga thing I'm talking about, and then the Steph Curry bad pass that led to a Pacer fast break dunk. 6-point deficit for the Warriors, 5:45 to go in the third. And what does Steve do? He's so frustrated, and rightly so. He's so frustrated that he pulls Steph out. He pulls Kuminga out. You know, arguably 2 of the Warriors' 3 best players so far this year. Steph definitely, and Kuminga at worst is their 4th best player tonight, but probably their 3rd best player, or 4th best player on the year, probably their 3rd best player on the year behind Jimmy Butler and Steph. And he says, you guys are really struggling. All right, let's see what you can do, Guy. Let's see what you can do, Pod. Let's see what you can do, Moses. What about you, Buddy Hield? Quickly, Butler came in for Hield. Guy Santos and Al Horford. The group that they went to right after that Steph Curry turnover was Podziemski, Moody, Hield, Guy Santos, and Al Horford. And then again, about halfway through that stretch, they brought in Jimmy Butler for Hield, and Butler closed the third quarter in amazing fashion. He had the and one just before the buzzer in the third quarter, turned that 6-point deficit into a 6-point lead. But Podziemski scored 7 points in that stretch to close the third. Butler scored 7. Guy Santos scored 5. Al Horford had a mid-range jumper that he made. He scored 2. That accounts for the 21 points the Warriors scored in that 6-minute stretch to go from down 6 to up 6 going into the fourth. It was the bench group. And I'm seeing some of this coming in on the YouTube chat, and maybe this is why there's a lot of frustration around Steve Kerr and his decisions tonight, and I feel you. That group should have been given more minutes. And I understand that. What did Guy Santos play in the fourth quarter? Because I know he began the fourth quarter. Guy Santos played the first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. Now, at that point, he had played like 11 or 12 consecutive minutes. Not that he couldn't keep playing, but at some point, you do need a rest. Now, he was great in those 4 minutes. He had 3 offensive rebounds in those 4 minutes. 3 offensive rebounds in those 4 minutes. And by the way, that was like the only reason why the Warriors were scoring was on offensive rebounds. The offense, even early in the fourth, when they were extending that run while Steph rested, it's not like they were incredibly efficient. They still were struggling to shoot the ball, but it was offensive rebounds and second chance points. And a lot of that was Guy Santos. I will say, like, Steve showed the willingness to go away from the normal rotation pattern by pulling Steph with 6 minutes left in the third. That normally happens around the 4-minute mark of the third. He plays the first 8 minutes of the third, sits for the final 4, sits for the first 4 of the fourth, and plays the final 8. That's usually what happens. That's how you get to 16 minutes and a half. That did not happen in this game because it was going so poorly with him out there that Steve said, you know what, Steph, sit down 2 minutes early, and we're going to try to lean on Podziemski, Moody, Hield, and or Butler, Guy Santos, and Al Horford. And it worked. Maybe that group should have been given a little bit more in the fourth quarter, but at a certain point, it's a close basketball game, and you bring Steph in. And by the way, it worked initially. Steph came in, immediately hit the three-pointer off of an offensive rebound by Guy Santos, and the Warriors led by 11 with 6 minutes left. Like, I understand it's very easy. Hindsight's 20/20. I understand the frustration with minutes and rotations and decisions and all that. I really do get it. Sometimes it's just as simple as does your star play like a star? Does your superstar, is he behaving like a superstar tonight? And for Steve Kerr, Steph wasn't. So I don't know, what do you want him to do? You want him to pull Steph with 2 minutes left because it's still not looking great? Like, that's not going to happen. The only times I can remember it happening where Steph doesn't close a game, when it's, in the balance with like 4 minutes left. I can think of this happening last year, I believe, in Phoenix. It's happened a couple of times. It's happened a number of times in the Kerr era. But for whatever reason, the starters don't have it. The starters play so terribly that you get down by like 25 points. And you pull Steph out in the third quarter, and then the bench squad gets it to within like 10 with 5 minutes left, right? The bench squad, inspiring basketball, they get you back within 10 with 5 minutes to go. And Steve then has to ask himself, well, should I put Steph Curry back in because he's Steph Curry? And logically, he probably gives us our best chance to come all the way back and win. Or do I keep rolling with this bench unit that took us from down 25 to only down 10 with 5 minutes left? What's the strategy? And at times in those moments, he said, all right, Steph, no. You're staying on the bench. That bench squad has earned it. And you've been so terrible today. You and the starters have been so terrible today. I don't have confidence that's going to work. That's not what tonight was. Was Steph bad? Yes, of course he was. But it's not as if the Warriors, because of Steph, were down by 25 points in this game. They were up by 8 when Steph came back in. And they ultimately got the lead up to 11 thanks to a Steph 3. So, I get the frustration. I have a hard time saying this loss is on Steve when Steph had a really bad game. It happens. It happens. That was a rough one. Now, let's hear what Steph Curry had to say about this basketball game. Here's Steph. Steph, what do you think about that loss tonight? Here's Steph Curry.
I don't know specifically. They had a couple big threes that got him over the hump. We missed a couple. But throughout the course of the game, this is one of those, you just look in the mirror. There are parts of the game where I made it too hard on all of us with not getting organized, bad possessions, a little lack of energy. And you give a team like that life, their record was a little misconceiving because they've been in a bunch of games and they have enough talent where you saw they can make shots down the stretch. And just one of those rough games you got to play better throughout the meat of the game so that you give yourself that breathing room where a couple shots here and there don't determine the outcome.
Yeah, there's Steph. I mean, he's saying he just made it way more difficult than everybody, than it had to be. And he's absolutely right with what happened today. I know we already heard this, but I want to single this part out specifically of what Steve Kerr said. Here's Steve Kerr when asked about Steph Curry's performance tonight.
It just wasn't Steph's night. He just wasn't himself, and tough night.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell Steve is frustrated because he's not normally that short-winded. But yeah, and he kind of was looking for the right words. Not his night. That's absolutely right. Let's see. Here's Steph talking about frustration and the frustration of what tonight was. You lose an 11-point lead in the final 6 minutes. You lose back-to-back games in which Giannis sat out on Thursday, and a game tonight where obviously no Tyrese Halliburton dealing with that Achilles tear that he suffered in the finals last year, but also down a number of other starters. Here's Steph talking about the frustration of these losses.
That's obviously true. We've experienced it over the course of the last couple of years, but I think more so it's the frustration of not being able to, capture that momentum that we had and sustain, the start that we had. So I know we can get it back, like, long way to go, but you start, 4-2. Everybody's been talking about how tough the schedule is and all this and that, but these are two games that you really should have and wanted to have to show for, our start. But hopefully it lights a fire in all of us to, get back on the horse and figure out how we can win a very difficult stretch, or throughout a very difficult stretch coming up, and, show that we're a very capable team.
There's Steph. Yeah, I mean, like, the West is going to be so competitive. Like, it's far too early to look at standings and say, well, if you won this, you would be second place in the West or whatever it is. What we can say is the West is going to be so darn competitive again this year, and the same was true last year. Let me bring it up so I can get you exactly the right numbers. Let me bring up the NBA standings here. The standings in the West last year were so jumbled. I would imagine that the same is going to be true. It might even be worse this year because you have, I think, other teams that you expect to be better, like San Antonio and like Portland. Now maybe a team like the Lakers falls off. Who knows? Maybe a team like Memphis falls off. Maybe Sacramento isn't as good, who was in the play-in last year. Regardless, I do think from like 2 or 3 through 9-ish feels like it's going to be pretty darn competitive. So last year, you had 2 wins separating 3rd through 8th. 2 wins separated 3rd through 8th in the playoffs last year. Not saying these 2 games the Warriors have lost on this road trip, Milwaukee on Thursday and Indiana tonight, not saying that those 2 losses are going to be the reason the Warriors maybe finish 7th instead of 3rd or whatever it is, right? But when this is jumbled at the end of the season, you're going to think, man, if we just won one more game, that's a difference in a whole lot. Like, these are valuable games. Very valuable games and winnable games. And in a West that is so competitive, it is going to be rare that you go into a game feeling like, all right, this is one we absolutely should win. So many of these games in the West are going to be coin flips just because of how good the vast majority of these teams are. So whenever you get a game gift wrapped to you in the form of Indiana down like 4 or 5 starters and 5 key players, they're winless, they're on a back-to-back, by the way, and you're not, you have to win those games. You have to win those games. Specifically tonight. You could say the same, I think, for Milwaukee. Down Giannis, but they weren't on a back-to-back. They were well-rested. Like, I get that as well. You probably feel like you should have won both, specifically tonight. This one had everything going your way. Everything going your way, and you found a way to blow it. That was bad. That was bad from the Warriors today. There's no doubt. Here's more Steph. By the way, before I get to that, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco and Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app and now broadcasting from the Laughing Monk Studios. Here's more Steph talking about what they need to do going forward.
Just be professional, understand what you need to do to get your body, your mind ready to bring your best self. Again, that's where us as vets, and I look at myself, you got to be able to, demonstrate that, execute it, even if you don't have it physically at your, 10 out of 10, that you're able to control a game on both ends with your brain. And that's kind of what I was talking about in the first, part of the meat of the game, where thinking you just make the game hard for no reason. And answer the call, watching film, understanding how the league is going with different lineups out there and how fast, pace teams are trying to play, and make the necessary adjustments.
So what do they need to do? Steph says they got to be professional, and he's going to take that upon himself. More Steph, what do the Warriors need to work on? What do they have to work on?
Probably just a sustained run of good defensive possessions where you're, flying around, talking, everybody on a string. Offensively, we've been okay. We've been working on our spacing and transition when we get the ball in certain guys' hands, and I think we did a little bit better job of that tonight. But just connecting the game, we struggled for big stretches to create separation, and that hurt us in both games.
All right, there's Steph. This also pops out to me because this was a word that I think popped up in Milwaukee, and it's, I think, not got Steve Kerr and the Warriors in trouble, but Steve Kerr talked about fatigue playing into some of their turnovers. Remember, on Thursday in Milwaukee, 22 turnovers by the Warriors led to, I believe it was 27 points for the Bucks, and that was reason number one why the Warriors lost that game on Thursday. And Steve said post-game, fatigue is playing into it. And so many Warrior fans jumped to that and say, well, if the Warriors are fatigued 6 games into the season, how are they going to survive the next what would that be? 76 games of the year. And Steve later explained less about the age of the team and more just about given what their schedule had been, any team, no matter how old you are, is going to feel a little fatigued. Well, the word came up again. He was asked, Steph was, if the issues defensively is a fatigue thing or something else, and here's how Steph answered that question.
The defense, is that a fatigue thing as we're on the road, or is that just something that can be fixed?
It will be fixed for sure.
No, he didn't really answer if it was a fatigue thing, but I guess if he says it will be fixed, then the logical conclusion is it's not a fatigue thing. We just got to be better. And that's how I would answer the question. That's what I believe. Again, some of the defensive issues right now are just ones that I don't know if they can solve, just in terms of I'm going to put my best point of attack defender on your quick, shifty guard, and I'm going to shut him down. Like that. That's hard for the Warriors to do. Now, there are better principles that you can have as a team defense to limit that. And I believe that's what Jerry Stackhouse is going to be in the lab doing, because they have been killed back-to-back games by those kinds of guards. But a lot of it is just, again, losing focus for a second here and there. And the other part of this is turnovers don't help. The Warriors turned the ball over 16 times tonight. It was not nearly as bad as it was on Thursday in Milwaukee, but turnovers still not good tonight. 16 turnovers is like 4 more than the Warriors really want. You want to be around 12. The Warriors turn the ball over 12 times. Pardon me, that's 4 too many. If you turn the ball over 12 times, you feel pretty good about your chances to win, and that might have been enough to win the game today. But it's not as if it was terrible tonight. But with those turnovers still, you're setting your defense up for failure, because that's all those possessions for the opponents off of turnovers. Not all of them, because some of them are dead ball turnovers, but a lot of them are live ball turnovers where your defense can't get set. So your offense isn't doing your defense favors, but there's still a lot of moments in the half court where you're just losing focus for a split second, and it's costing you buckets. You're allowing your opponents to get easy buckets time and time and time again. It was a rough one tonight for the Warriors. You led by 11 with 6:05 left, and then the Pacers go on a 21-5 run, and they largely did it with some guys that you look at the chart and you say, who the hell are you? Quentin Jackson, undrafted a few years ago, scored a career-high 25 points. I know all you guys know who Aaron Nesmith is. Remember that game 1 that he had in the Eastern Conference Finals versus the Knicks in the fourth quarter when he just hit 3 after 3 after 3? I believe he set a Pacers franchise record for most threes in a single playoff quarter in that one. That was the Tyrese Halliburton game-winning buzzer beater with a high bounce off the rim, right? But what led to that was the Aaron Nesmith explosion in the fourth quarter. Like, he's a hell of a player, but also a career-high 31 points for him tonight. You don't expect Nesmith to have 31 points, and he had really been struggling to begin this season. In fact, his last couple of games, I had written it down. Where did it go? He was something like, let me find it out for you. I lost my notes here. But Aaron Nesmith, in the 2 games before tonight, was 3 for 17 from deep and 5 for 27 from the field. An all-time shooting slump for Aaron Nesmith. And then tonight he responds, goes 10 for 19 from the field and 5 for 11 from downtown, scores 31 to lead the way for the Pacers. Pascal Siakam had 27. He was very good in this game, although kind of a volume guy, 27 points on 23 shots. The Pacers stayed in this game in the first half because they dominated the paint. That's also, I think, where we can point to some Warriors defensive deficiencies, allowing the Pacers to get to the paint, and that's what we were talking about with the Quentin Jackson drives, just right to the hoop without a lot of issue. But the Pacers stayed in this game in the first half because of their ability to get to the paint. I thought they needed to send a couple of defenders to Siakam in the first half. They did not. They defended him straight up, and Siakam killed them in the first half as a result. And then the second half, they got their threes to fall. That's when Nesmith was great. He got going in the second quarter, was very good in the second half as well. And then it was Quentin Jackson in the second half. Let's see. Quentin Jackson in the first half had just 8 points, which means in the second half he had 17 points. He was great in the second half, and they got their shots to fall from the outside. They did it a lot in the final 6 minutes of this game. They erased an 11-point deficit, and they win this game by a final of 114-109. Warriors have lost consecutive games now, and their 4-1 start feels like a distant memory because things were great. 4-1, had beaten 4 playoff caliber teams in the West, and now you've lost to a couple of the teams who, you hear their names, you think, oh, the Bucks and the Pacers, those are tough games. But considering the context that you played those teams, you should have won both of them, and specifically, you should have won tonight. You were a double-digit favorite, and you blew a double-digit lead in the fourth quarter. Terrible, terrible for the Warriors tonight. All right, that's Warriors wrap up here on 95.7 The Game. The Dubs lose 114-109. Up next for the Warriors, they return home on Tuesday. The Phoenix Suns are in town. Dylan Brooks is in town. He's going to get booed heavily at Chase Center, I guarantee that. That's on Tuesday at 7. Warriors Live begins at 6, of course, right here on 95.7 The Game. Then they travel to Sacramento on Wednesday for a back-to-back home, and then in Sac, the back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday. Then back out on the road, Denver on Friday, and then the Pacers back in town a week from tomorrow on Sunday, November 9th. So 8 days from now, the Pacers back in town. Warriors trying to get a little bit of revenge versus the Pacers then. All right, that'll do it for Warriors Wrap-Up. Thanks so much to all of you for tuning in. Shout out as well to our guys behind the glass, Cam Williams, our network coordinator. Also, all that Steph Curry and Steve Kerr sound you heard, Ken Luttrell, who I believe is sitting outside right now watching the World Series Game 7. I'm going to join him and watch the bottom of the 9th inning, which is coming up in just a sec. See if the Blue Jays can hold on to this thing versus the Dodgers. Fingers crossed. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Mark Randy signing off. I'll talk to you tomorrow for overtime as the Niners are in New York taking on the Giants. Pregame begins at 8 with Evan Giddings and O'Neal. The game at 10. And then I will be here with Sterling Bennett probably around 1 o'clock or so for Niners and Giants post-game reaction. Until then, my name is Mark Randy signing off. Thanks for tuning in. We'll talk tomorrow on 95.7 The Game.
If we're going to criticize him at every turn of the way, they are now 7-2. They win at Nebraska. Now, it's worth noting in that game that